Hi, Julia. David has graciously agreed to give a talk on the wonderful transfer articulation work that he's doing at New Mexico State University. David serves as the Associate Provost for Curriculum and Assessment at NMSU, and as he just mentioned, has spent most of his career as a chemistry faculty. I don't know if you want to add anything, David, about your...
You'll find out more about me, I guess, as we go along in terms of what I'm doing now.
All right, so with that, I'll turn it over to you.
Cool. Let me share my screen here. Okay. Presume you can all see the presentation slides. Is that right?
Yeah.
And make sure they move. Okay. They do. All right. So I'm David Smith. I'm going to talk today about strategies we have for using curricular complexity ideas and other information to help departments improve their programs, improve student success in their programs, and to improve transfer. I'll tell you more about our institution in a minute as to why that in particular is important to us here. How do I communicate complexity information to departments? It won't be at the level of all the diagrams that Greg likes to show. It's at a level that they can understand, I hope. And then using complexity to characterize STEM transfer pathways, I'm especially excited about thinking about alternative ways to define degree progress with regard to transfer, and then strategies for improving STEM transfer success. NMSU is located down here in southern New Mexico, Las Cruces, New Mexico. It's a system with a main campus and 4 community colleges, which are the other stars on the campus map there, the state map there. Our main campus enrollment's about 11,500, 63% Hispanic. Our community college, the largest one, is located also in Las Cruces, and it's 76% Hispanic. 7,100 total students. High percentage low-income first-generation students, demographics that I'm sure you're familiar with at Arizona also. We have a new strategic plan, leads 2025, student success, include goals to improve social mobility, close achievement gaps. Viable transfer paths are essential for meeting these goals. We have more Hispanic students, for example, in our community colleges than here. We have more low-income students in our community colleges. To serve all of our students in our region, transfer pathways is something we need to really optimize the use of. And so that's the motivation, the sort of strategic motivation for doing the work here that we're doing. This is pretty much a talk that I gave at the Gardner Institute workshop in June that Greg also spoke at as the keynote. So all of the audience had just heard Greg speak and knew the basics about curricular complexity. So I'm not going to say much about that today. I'll assume you know that, but you can certainly interrupt and ask questions if you'd like. So communicating complexity information to departments and colleges, we have had some workshops and intend to have more where we give a sort of big picture of what complexity is. Key point in those is to give departments the idea that prerequisite structures are malleable. You can change them. They're not fixed in stone, and that changing them might improve your student performance. It's a totally new concept for many departments. They think, well, this is the way we've always done it. It's a good reason that we do it. Well, sometimes there are good reasons and sometimes they're not. So open the minds to the idea that maybe you can change structures and help students that way. And what's neat about that is you don't have to change instruction necessarily at all. And so it can be an administrator's work to change it, not the instructor's work to do something dramatically different. I think, of course, what happens in the classes is also vitally important, but it's another topic. Communicating course level complexity scores as well as program scores and charts is one of the things that I'm going to show you today. I think if we go down to course level to look at complexity, it helps us in a lot of ways to better understand the curriculum and changes that we might make. Integrating it with enrollment and pass rate information. It's a spreadsheet report that I will show you that I give to departments. It has all of this information integrated together in a way that I hope will evaluate feasibility of transfer pathways for our community colleges, as well as directing where efforts might best be put, not just to reform curricula, but to improve instruction. Where do you put your efforts to improve instruction? This, I think, can be some guiding principles for that. Provide information on peer programs, curricular complexity. It means a lot more if you can see 10 other peer programs in the same, engineering field. And that helps people to see that you can indeed have different complexities for mechanical engineering, et cetera. And the APLU project that we're working on will have 11 institutions. So presumably we'll have, up to a dozen curricular complexity analyses of similar programs from those institutions. I do include information on transfer feasibility. I'll show you exactly how I do that as we go along. And I'm going to focus on an example, our BS in computer science program. This program has enrollment that's been growing quite a bit. It's about 55% Hispanic, 44%, completions Hispanic. Oh, so the question here is, are we bringing students in and not serving them as well? Because the completion percentages isn't as high as enrollment percentages. So just a little bit of a characteristic for that department. They're actually doing great at bringing in new students, both women into computer science and Hispanic and other minorities into computer science. All right, so this is the curricular complexity chart for that computer science BS program. Complexity of 143, that's a modest, reasonably high, but not nearly as high as some of our engineering programs. Chemical engineering is almost 600 at our institution, 123 credit hours. And what you see is most of the complexities is associated with the intro to CS course, and there's 4 core lower division CS courses, the 200 level CS courses that are essentially involved in all of the complexity, and their prerequisites then for a bunch of other things at higher levels. Okay, so that gives you a little picture of what it looks like. I think I put this up here just to show, the blocking factor, delay factor. It blocks 14 courses, and longest chain here is just 4 courses for this particular curriculum. All right, now you're not supposed to be able to read this spreadsheet report. I just want you to see the whole thing in once. This is what I'm going to give to departments. I'll show you things in more detail in a minute, but it shows the degree plan over here by semester, shaded green and white. It shows the course level complexity. It shows the DFW rates for the students taking those courses. It shows enrollments of the majors in the different courses. It shows enrollments on main campus and the community college campuses. The dark green are courses that can't be taken at the community colleges. And then things over here, which I'll describe more in a minute, are feasibility for transfer within our system. All right, so let me show you a couple things in particular. I do have links to the complexity charts because there's hundreds of these things on the website now. Instead of having people go find the right one, you can just link to it, say this is your program's complexity chart. It shows all the courses, again, by term, shaded. So you can see here's this CS 172, the intro course, 271, 273, 272, and 278 are the core lower division CS courses. All of those have reasonably high complexity. As you can see here, the orange highlighting is just arbitrary, like greater than 10 or equal to 10. All of those courses have relatively high complexities. There are also challenging courses, DFW rates that are over 20% for all of those core courses, as well as calculus and some other things like that. Okay. So that's just orienting people to their own degree plans. These are taken from the catalog, the roadmaps, et cetera.
Real quick, what is you at NMSU? DFW.
Oh, it's people at unsatisfactory got grouped in with D, F, and W for courses that are
got it.
And so a few of these courses will be, maybe a seminar course will be SU. So yeah, that's all.
Got it.
I do get going and it may be hard to interrupt, but you're welcome to interrupt me if you have questions. So complexity and DFW percents by course. For most of these, it would just be a DFW percent. So D's, F's, and withdrawals. I would argue that consideration of pass rate information is critical in our courses, along with the curricular complexity information. High complexity would be, I would argue, irrelevant if all students can enroll in and pass the courses they need. We don't care about complexity. Our most complex program is our nursing program. Complexity score 730. It's very hard to get in, and when you get in, you graduate. 95% of their students graduate in 4 years because they're in a cohort and they're moved through the courses, and they almost all of them pass. And so I'm not worried about this program in terms of complexity. It's just, it's working the way it is because the pass rates are so good. All right. Complexity scores and pass rates together can guide instructional interventions better than either alone. So I'm looking, not only can we make curricular modifications to reduce complexity. But even if we don't do that, can complexity scores guide us as to where to make interventions? Where do we put our peer mentors, for example? Where do we put our best instructors? And I think this can really help us to know how to improve programs in that regard. When I'm communicating with a variety of departments, I'm trying to bring several different messages that hopefully one of them will resonate with every department. Because if you're just talking about high complexity and you're talking to the philosophy department, they're not going to engage. But if I'm talking about transfer feasibility, maybe they will, or instructional interventions, maybe they will. So I'm trying to bring it all together so that everybody is engaged when we're having these larger workshops, at least. Let me show you one example. Let's see what I was doing here. Yeah, about the importance of connecting complexity and DFW rates together. This is my one example from the simulations that Quinn's been doing with me this summer. I'm not going to go into much detail. These are the simulations that Greg, the package that he put together from Jupyter Notebooks, we've downloaded, and this was for mechanical engineering degree. And I just want to show you one data point for two different classes to illustrate, I think, the importance of thinking about complexity when we think about improving grade rates. So the simulated time to degree for this program is 9.29 terms. It's got a complexity, the overall program, around 290. There's two classes I picked out here. One's Gen Chem class. It's in the first semester. It's got a pass rate of about 70%. Its complexity at a course level is 3. It's a prerequisite for one materials course later in the program. Otherwise, it's not a prerequisite for anything. ME 228, Engineering Analysis 1, is part of the calculus sequence. It's a chain of 7 courses long. You take it right after the 3 sequence of calculus and before some other courses. Both of these have 70% pass rates, complexity of 14, much higher than for the ME course there. All right, so what we did with simulations is we asked, what happened to the student performance if we increase the pass rate to 100%? All right, so hypothetically, it's going to be hard to actually do it, but suppose you could increase it 100%, all the students pass. And the time to degree for this program, if we make Gen Chem 100% pass rate, goes down from 9.29 terms to 9.25 terms. Okay, 0.04, not a huge difference, but it's better, it's in the right direction. When we do the same thing for this class, go from 70% to 100%, time to degree is 9.08. Okay, so if you look at the difference, 9.29 to 9.25, 9.29 to 9.08, it's about a 5-fold larger improvement to improve the grades in a high complexity course than improving the grades in the low complexity course. Now, this is for time to degree. Their effects on graduation rates are similar for the two courses, but time to degree is very much dependent on whether they're in a high complexity structure or not. So I thought that was cool. And certainly says, hey, if I'm going to put my effort into improving grades, calculus is a great place to do that in engineering. Now, that's no surprise to engineering departments. They know that. But chemistry, they might think they should put, encourage the effort there as well. It's not as much benefit for the chemistry because it's not involved in as many prerequisites. Any questions on that? I don't want to go into detail on the simulations. I just wanted to give a little teaser on some of the work we're doing. And I really like this idea of sort of sensitivity to changes in pass rates.
Yeah, I did just want to, most faculty are going to think in terms of terms or semesters, right? And to me, those are still within the same number of semesters that a student would need to take. So while it is significant, does it actually matter in practice?
So I think what would be better here is to say this percentage of students finished in 8 terms, this percentage of students in 9 terms. This average is probably, your question just told me this. I didn't think about this ahead of time. That would be a better way to say, hey, finishing in the percentage of students who finish in 8 terms went up by this percent. The percentage who finished in 10 terms went up by this much.
Yeah, because it's just trying to talk about fractions of people, right? They have to do whole semesters. And so being able to bend that out a little bit more, I think you might actually strengthen your case.
I think that's a great point. And I just naturally will disaggregate this in my head and say, I'm seeing a distribution that I collapsed into one number, and I should show the distribution, but yeah.
And the simulation would have the simulation is discrete events. So it would actually have the terms that they finished in. You could, right, Quinn? I think you could.
Yeah, they do. We've,
Yeah.
Sorry, Quinn could answer that too, but we've plotted those as well. It's
have you?
nice to get a quick a quick single number is good for analyzing lots of data. And then when you give a talk, you can break it back out and it would be more meaningful. So great point.
And I wanted to say that just Jia Chen is the one who put this, who's here today, put that code into the toolbox for the simulation. So we'd love to hear feedback on usability of that, because that's like a rough feature we want to improve upon. So.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. So Quinn, great work. Thank you for your work on that. And, all right. I'm going to go away from simulations now and back to what I was doing in the talk. I'm going to give you a digression into measures of degree progress. And to do that, I'm going to talk about an analogy of hiking. These are the Oregon Mountains just east of Las Cruces, New Mexico. If you ever drive from Arizona over to Texas, you go really close to these. They're fabulously beautiful mountains. And there's a hike that I've done twice. It's a brutal hike. It's called Oregon Needle. It's right here. And it's about 3 miles long. And the first mile is pretty easy. Takes me maybe 25 minutes. This is where you take your family when they're visiting from out of town. Second mile, about 45 more minutes for the second mile. You're doing some good climbing here. It's for your hiking buddies. That's great. And the last mile, it's like I said, it's brutal. It's 2 hours to go 1 mile. It's a lot of steep, rugged trail, etc. The reason I'm sharing this is measures of distance here are not good measures of progress on this hike. All right. I'm not a third of the way there when I've gone 1 mile in terms of effort. So what's a better measure? Well, elevation would be a better measure, or time would be a better measure. Elevation is the one I'm really thinking about here because it captures the idea of difficulty of the work that you're doing. Work is literally, moving a mass through a force of gravity. And so the work you do is proportional to elevation in that sense. And so what is a better measure for progress on my hike? I like to use elevation. I say, how much have I climbed and how much do I still have to go? All right, so there's a terrain here that's not even. Okay, it's not just a straight single slope all the way up here. Likewise, our degree programs have a terrain to them. They don't have equal difficulty along each step of the way. And so can we capture something about that terrain that would give us a better sense of progress toward the degree as we move through the degree plan? Varied terrain distance traveled is not the best measure of progress. So how do I characterize terrain of a degree program? As a first try, I'm going to use complexity points to try to give a different measure of degree progress. All right, now when students think about degree progress, the first thing they often will think about is credits completed. I mean, I took 15 credits for 4 years every semester. I should be done. But even if they're not productive credits, students sometimes think they're making progress. So taking another GE course when you finish your GE is not really making any progress at all. It's not a good measure. A better measure than credits completed is productive credits completed. Does it actually count toward your degree or not? And so that's what advisors will be thinking about when they talk to students. Complexity provides an alternative measure where I can define degree complexity as just the sum of the course complexities and ask, well, what fraction of the 290 complexity points have you finished? I'll show you some graphs of this to see what that looks like compared with credit completion measures of progress. So complexity point completion is just a percentage points completed divided by the points required. All right, so here's the complexity-based progress graph for computer science. And all I did here is I moved through the courses in order. I'm not thinking term by term now. I just one course at a time. Finished the first course, it had a complexity of 1. Finished the second course, it was that CS 172 course, and you get a big jump here. The next course maybe has a complexity of 1 also. So you're marching through. After 1 semester, you finish 15 or 18 credits. After 2, you're up here around 30 credits. And you can see then this structure. This is a fairly typical structure for high complex degrees. You get a shape that shows sort of a front-loaded increase of complexity. It's concave down. In other words, you do more of the complexity in the beginning than the end, but it's balanced. You don't do all of the hard courses first. And when I say hard, often the complex courses are also the difficult courses, but I'm using the term kind of loosely there. So that's the typical sort of picture that you might get for a degree in terms of complexity progress. Grad is completed versus this. All right. Now I'm going to show graphs of those to my departments for their program, and I'm going to show graphs to the departments of what a student could do if they were transferring from one of our community colleges. So let me show you how I do that. Okay, so this computer science degree, you might ask, can we make a 2+2 pathway out of it? All right, so what we did is if I take all of the lower division courses that are available at the community colleges, okay, the dark green means that our community colleges, and there's 4 campuses in our system, they can't teach these courses. Either they're 300 level, or in the case of these 200 level CS courses, they just don't have the faculty and student demand to teach those. All right, front load all of the courses in the degree plan, including electives, that you can take at the community college. And you see pretty quickly it's not viable. You can't finish even anywhere near 60 credits going through the things here. This is a common challenge in STEM transfer. Students end up spending a lot of their first 2 years taking extra courses that don't count toward the degree. And then they get to main campus and they're in trouble because they have all the hard classes.
David,
Yeah.
quick question about your community colleges there. Do you have, so that CS 172 is CS 172 at all of those places?
Yep, we have exactly the same course names and descriptions and numbers at all the campuses.
Okay,
It makes it easy for us to talk about transfer within our system then.
Okay,
We have a single transcript. So if you complete a course at any of the campuses, it's equivalent to, in terms of credit, to any other campus.
Okay.
All right. So here again, I have enrollment by campus. So main campus enrollments, not just of these majors, but of all students. So, you know, the comm class is huge. English classes are huge. Our 4 campuses, you can see Doña Ana Community College, the biggest one, regularly offers CS 172, Alamogordo on occasion. On occasion, Doña Ana will offer this CS 272, but rarely, so you only get 1 or 2 students. Most of these courses aren't offered there. And the other ones that they are offering are, you know, 200 level biology, gen ed, science, et cetera, things like that. Okay. If I make a 2+2 pathway, the best I can do it, this is what the complexity structure looks like. This one lone CS 172 course, and that's only if you're at the ACC that you can take it, and everything else is shoved out here to term 5 and beyond. That's what the other one looked like, okay, where you spread it out. And sorry, I'm not being able to go backwards very well, but so anyway, you have the 2, and I just wanted to alternate between the 2 to see the difference. Okay.
Yeah, big.
Okay, so here's our preferred pathway in terms of this complexity graph of progress. Here's what it looks like at the community college, and you can see they get this one nice course here, but otherwise they're doing all the flat stuff first, and then they're climbing a cliff when they come after 2 years. It is totally unrealistic for a student to take 4 200 level core computer science courses in 1 semester when they arrive, but that's what they need to do to finish in 4 years. It's like climbing a cliff, and they'll give up. Okay, maybe 1 or 2 of the students might be able to do it, but it's not likely. All right, so what I do now is I show departments this information for that degree. I look at how many credits are available out of the 120 total credits for the degree. How many credits are available on each of our campuses? And what % of the completion of the degree can they do in terms of credits on those campuses? The goal would be 50% completion, or 60 credits could be completed at the community college. We're at about 40% for most of our campuses here. That's shown graphically down here. The blue bars would indicate the percentage of the degree that can be completed in terms of credits after 2 years in the community colleges. Okay. I also show them a table with the complexity points that you can complete on the community college campuses and graph that as the red bars. And clearly here, you're making 40% or so progress in terms of credits, 20% or so in terms of complexity. So very different completion ideas here. this immediately says, hey, you know, we're really not, this is not a feasible degree as is to do a 2+2 program with. We need to think outside that box in order to better support transfer for these students. Okay. And then I'll show them the graphs for main campus in red and the community college for all 4 community colleges. You can see that DACC is a little better than the others but it still lags behind both in terms of credits and complexity. And then Grants, which is our smallest campus by far, they can't offer the calculus classes. And so they can make very little progress toward the complexity and not that much toward credits either. Okay, so this, you can very quickly, I can show this for 50 programs and we can very quickly say, these are the ones that are feasible for transfer in terms of credits and also in terms of complexity. For courses that are low complexity, this will, yeah. Go ahead, Greg.
That gap is kind of an interesting metric, right? The distance in the gap itself, right? The elevation, if you would.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you could quantify that. Do you offer any of those CS courses online?
That's what I'm going to get to in a minute here. So.
Oh, okay.
I think transfer strategies. So here's the idea. You want to improve transfer for these courses. The curricular reform sometimes can be a way to improve transfer, optimize the use of instructional capacity, community colleges, or maybe, you know, we're investigating prerequisite structures for engineering courses in a witchy passport project, and trying to say, hey, maybe we can redesign a curriculum to better capture the capacity, instructional capacity at the community colleges in a way that doesn't make them lag behind in terms of complexity. But the other strategy is, can you provide online bridge courses? And this sort of analysis, I think, can tell us which courses would be most valuable to offer in that way. These could be taught by main campus faculty. A big challenge for transfer students is changing the culture from community college to main campus. You can have a cultural and curricular bridge with these bridge courses. You can embed peer mentors. Students who did a transfer from the community college can be peer mentors to these students in the 100 and 200 level CS courses, for example. That helps, again, build a cultural bridge to the main campus. So I think you have a lot of potential to do this sort of thing. And we know immediately from our analysis which courses to do. If I simply offer the 3 lower division core courses, the 200 level courses, in addition to that 100 level course that's offered at some of the schools, look at what we get. So 3 courses. Now we have a very feasible transfer degree by doing that. We can, if we offer it online, we can serve our students at Grants, which is a rural college in northern New Mexico that has a lot of needs for teaching capacity there, and almost bring them up to speed as well. And so that's exactly, I think, a strategy that we want to do. And what this does is it helps, I think, us identify what courses would be best serving us in that regard. Are we doing that? Not in the computer science courses. For the Doñana Community College students, they can do a dual enrollment. They can sign up for main campus classes and take them on campus here because our campuses are adjacent to each other. For the students that are farther away, though, we need to do the online courses. So that's something we're trying to develop with our new Vice Provost for Digital Learning Initiatives right now. In terms of the graphs, if I add the 3 lower division courses to Alamogordo campus, it goes from this graph here to this one here, and that's clearly much more feasible for transfer than what we had before. All right, so transfer conversations that I hope to have with departments around these big spreadsheets, which I walk them through those and let them each look at their own department. I want to highlight the benefits and importance of transfer. It's something that's not always clear to departments. Our departments don't know how many of their majors came from our community colleges. That's not something they have easy access to, and we're trying to change that. I'm trying to link to strategic priorities. Let's emphasize the social justice implications. If we want to improve social mobility for all of our students, we should be emphasizing pathways that use the community colleges in our system much better than we are right now. I'll give you an illustration of that. Here's some data that I just put together for us here. I looked at 7-year total bachelor's completions by college. And then I looked at the engineering college. These are each of the departments within our engineering college. For students that had 24 or more credits from DACC, that's less than 1 year, but they have significant credits at DACC. I call those Branchfer with the blue. For students who had 24 or more credits from any of the 4 community colleges, I call those Branchfer other. I'm particularly interested in DACC because of a project I'm working on with them. And every other student who starts at main campus when they start in our system, I label this here. So I'm not splitting out other transfer students. These are just the Branchfer students from our campuses. So you can see engineering technology has the greatest fraction of students that have used community college pathways. Mechanical engineering is probably next most, very few in industrial engineering, et cetera. Now, hopefully that's clear. What I want to do now is break this out for you in terms of demographics. So we've got underrepresented minority students down here and all others up here. Same graphs. So total number of degrees, completions over a 7-year period, Branchfer students, main campus students. And what you should see is the fraction of students using the community college for their pathways. And these are students who got their degrees at NMSU main campus. The fraction of students who went through community college is much greater for underrepresented minorities than it is for other students. So if we want to increase our enrollment of underrepresented minorities, hey, a lot of them are using the community college pathways. That's not true for industrial engineering. Doesn't seem to have very many underrepresented minorities at all. That's kind of interesting. In the other cases, all of them have more underrepresented minorities than other students and larger fractions of those that came through the community colleges.
David,
So it's just a way to sort of say, this is a pathway we should emphasize if we really want to serve all of our students. Greg, yes.
I had a couple questions here. So 7 years is just, you picked a long time frame. So, you know,
I
they're
wanted
probably
to
not
get
too
rid of
many.
the noise. So I can go
Yeah.
down to the level of departments. I wanted to get rid of the noise. So I picked 7.
Okay.
Yeah, I had the
So-
same
so
question.
it's
I was
arbitrary.
wondering why you picked 7.
I think it's
Well,
because I
no.
had that in another graph. I was looking at the time evolution of their enrollments over 7 years. So I just said, oh, I'll just add them all together. It was
And
arbitrary, but yeah.
I imagine you're not getting too many more graduates after 7 years in any event. So if someone's able to graduate, you're probably, for the most part, getting it.
Actually, Greg,
But-
let me clarify, because this is not about time to degree at all. The 7 years here just means from 2014 to 2021, all of the total
I-
completions. Yeah, so.
Oh, so you look backwards. You picked
I
the
looked
completer and
backwards.
look, got it,
And
got it,
this, I did
okay.
not analyze for time to degree. I just said, where did they come from?
I
and
understand,
so-
okay.
And so, you know, and how many credits did they have from the community college? So
So
this is
this
not
is
about time to degree here.
Students who graduated ever. like,
Ever
no matter how
in
long
that
it took
7-year
them.
period,
Yeah.
students who graduated, whether it took them 4 years or 20 years.
Yeah.
If they graduated with those degrees in the last 7 years, they're included here.
I see.
Yeah, so I'm sorry that when I put in 7 year, you're going to immediately go to time to degree. I understand
Yeah,
that.
I understand now, thank you.
Yeah.
It would be interesting to look at time to degree for each, like, what is the impact on transferring on time to degree?
Absolutely, and that's a little tricky, but we're working on it. We have a new data capabilities that I have wonderful access to, where I can make my own dashboards and customize them for myself. So I'm really, it's like a new toy. I'm having a lot of fun. So I had to show you my new toy here. So that's why this.
Cool.
So anyway, that's the transfer conversations we have, and that's all I have to say. So I'm going to stop sharing, but I can put it back up if you have questions. Let me hear your questions.
Really good, David, thank you.
Thanks for coming.
I know, you know, Casey has a similar project ongoing, so I just wanted the two of you to meet for sure. And we're not too far apart from one another either, so maybe we get together at some point and dig deeper into the issues.
Yeah, I'm fascinated by what you've done here. Have you had success? Like, you talked to departments, are they doing things with this information?
Ask me again in 6 months. Honestly, I mean, this is the data that I have. I think I've had initial conversations with a subgroup of mostly associate deans, with a few department heads, just to say, does this look useful? what we have launched out to the broader community is just the ideas of curricular complexity without the DFW rate analysis.
Mhm.
And I didn't think that was particularly useful to them at all. By itself, the way we did it, I don't mean to dismiss the importance of complexity, Greg, by any means. I think we needed to package it a little differently before they would do anything with it. But we're also trying to couple this better with our strategic initiatives where departments will be reporting to deans on what they're doing to improve enrollment or completions among our underrepresented minorities, for example. Well, this is something I can give them and say, here's a tool for you to use in that conversation. I don't think it's effective for me to go to them and say, oh, out of the blue, we want you to do something with this. But if we say, oh, we know your deans are asking you to do this, and here's a tool that can help. And here's some ways you might use it to help. I'm hopeful that that will work. So yeah, it's too premature to know how effective it is, but I'm hopeful it will be good.
Well, the place that I was particularly interested in is how much of a difference you can make by just putting a small number of courses online. That matters.
Yeah.
And that would be a really significant way to increase access for exactly the students that we want to be moving through our programs successfully.
Yeah. Increase access and keep the cost low. Right now, our students, maybe transfer after 1 year to do a CS degree. CS has quite a few students who came through the community colleges, but I think they didn't generally complete their associate's degrees, and they probably came after a year or a year and a half. And there's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't have to be 2 + 2, although the community colleges like it when they get the 2 so they can get their associate's degree. You increase the cost that way. They're paying full price. And I think if we could offer these online at a discount over what main campus tuition is, that's kind of my dream, to our community colleges to say, hey, we want you to get the financial benefit of community college and still be able to transfer effectively here. So this is how we'll help. And I think our new VP of digital learning is on board with that idea in general. We just have to work it out.
David, why did you choose CS?
Why did I choose CS?
Yeah.
It had some of the, I think, honestly, I looked at the graphs for curricular, so the degree progress graphs with complexity and credits for a variety of degrees, and it was one that seemed cleanest to share. They don't all look as clean as that. So in some ways it was a best case to illustrate principles, although those principles apply to all of our engineering degrees too. They just don't look quite as smooth and clean. So I liked the way it looked. It was also sort of intermediate complexity, which, and it wasn't engineering. Engineering is already on board with these ideas. The other departments are less so. So, I'll start with a department that's in arts and sciences. I also did a STEM institute with the Dean of Arts and Sciences, who used to be the chair of computer science here. And so I'm particularly interested in that field because we've got a lot of work that we're doing on it right now already. Several reasons.
Yeah, one of my questions was going to be, who is the most interested? And it sounds like engineering. I mean, this is a classic engineering way of thinking about a problem. And so I can imagine that they, just resonate automatically with the analytical approach of it in a way that, someone in a different department is not going to see the data the same way.
And when I go to social sciences, they may just gravitate to the feasibility for transfer. I think that's a pretty easy sell, to say, your degree is very feasible. What are you doing to improve that? The number of students that you get. And I can show them, at that point, enrollments through transfer from our community colleges and say, maybe you're not achieving your potential here. So maybe, whatever. They are all looking to improve enrollments, and the reasoning behind that. Well, anyway.
I think your equity argument also is powerful.
It is, yeah, I think so. And I think it will resonate with people with the new structure for annual reporting for departments that's coming into play.
Well, thank you again.
Yeah,
Quinn, if you have any David, any feedback on how we might take some next steps on the simulation environment? Please feel free to supply them. Lou, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I was just going to echo what everyone else was saying. I think it's definitely a good story to tell, and because there's so much that is being data that needs to be data informed, and if you can provide people with a tool that has that data underpinning, then it definitely is going to get reached for.
Yeah, I'm really, like I said, I'm having a menu of information that I hope everybody finds something they're interested in on that. That's, for the initial rollout of things. And then, if I'm consulting with an individual department, the complexity stuff's going to appeal more to the STEM departments, with a few other ones thrown in, our music department, although that, yeah, there'll be some others, but mostly it'll be the STEM field.
So I'm curious on your DFW analysis, we use E here. Did you see a lot of variability within a given course? Because I know within our own programs, like in civil engineering, we'll have someone with a DFW rate of 30 or 40%, and then another instructor teaching the exact same class is like 5%.
Absolutely.
And so do you capture that in some way? Is that another place to possibly point them to say, hey, there's work here that you could do?
Absolutely. I've looked at it in cases. I haven't shared that with people yet. I'm just starting to look at it. And I think it's the elephant in the room when it comes to DFW rates for courses.
Yeah.
Because, I don't think statistical variation in the student population per Gen Chem from semester to semester will account for 20% variance in DFWs. It definitely comes down to instructors.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a poor standardization on our part. Not sure it's an easy problem to solve, but I think it's really one to point out.
Very good. Any other questions? Well,
Thank